So there are many in this group, in these gatherings, who have gone into self-liberation. And of course, we have gone into the 5 paths, the 37 factors of awakening, and all kinds of other stuff that tells us that really the journey begins when you recognize the nature of mind. Because now you have some space in your mind. If we're in the movement, the conditioning of the mind, it'll be very, very difficult to do anything else except for what the mind is demanding of us. We're almost pre-programmed in that sense. And then others are also trying to get in on the programming. And so, if you can zoom out into your whole mind, which includes all the elements, okay? Your mind is very spacious and omnipresent. By hinging on the clear light nature of mind. So if we were to have many, many thoughts right now, you can try to think of as many things as you can right now about whatever you want. There's a mind holding all these thoughts as they're happening, right? There's an awareness there. And so now, imagine if you were feeling up, down, neutral. That awareness also permeates your body, which is elemental. Every aspect of your body, including space itself. So, even the sounds are like that. Awareness is permeating every bit of the sound from start to finish. So we hinge on that clear light awareness because that's stable. I think most of you have already began noticing that and having self-liberation within awareness. You cannot let the air out of the balloon if there's a knot. So we need awareness to provide the space. Nature of mind. Rang Rigpa. All right, so any questions about that? Because the text in the last session and the next session are about that and about pointing out specifically. And this text is essentially going into the path. So every vehicle has a ground, path, and fruition. And the ground in Dzogchen is pointing out. When somebody points you out to the nature of mind. And the path is what Longchen is going through here. Any questions about that? Sorry if it's getting a little technical. Don't worry about it if you're not picking things up or not drawing any correlations. It's fine. It's all very, very simple when we deal with the view itself. Tawa, as Lama Lina likes to call it. Go ahead, Oza.
What I considered here is that if the ground pointing out is different than the path, which is resting or allowing it, there is a difference then between allowing it versus not allowing it. And then there's a view, right? What's the difference between that versus when the ground and fruition are the same and so is the path and there's no view?
Well, I'm not sure why you're presupposing that the path is different than the ground in Dzogchen, but to me, they're all three the same. Ground, path, and fruit. You take the fruit as the path.
Oh, it's just that you said different things for ground and path. Sorry.
Pointing out, right, is essentially the beginning. So, but that's still awareness as the ground. So the path is self-liberation. You're still using awareness for self-liberation. And the fruition is awareness.
Okay, so that's in the ground of like samsara, right? Like liberating samsara. Versus all three being the same is where samsara is not supposed at all. Is that applicable to say?
Sure, you could say it. I'm not sure exactly what you mean. It, the ground path and fruition, why we don't really need to overcomplicate that. It's awareness from start to finish. Turtles all the way down.
Okay, okay, yeah, that makes sense, I think. Okay, thank you.
It makes sense, it doesn't make sense, both and neither. Okay, any other questions? Anything about pointing out? I was saying that pointing out points you to awareness, like in the two other texts that we're doing. Um, it's still debatable with the Karmapa text. They may be on a slight off chance pointing you to emptiness only, but we'll see. I'm pretty sure because they've already mentioned the nature of mind. So I think they're also pointing out to the nature of mind, not the essence of mind. So what I was saying is in those two texts, you're pointed to awareness, which is dealing with awareness. And in this text, it's essentially about awareness. So the path in that regard. Because it's not so much about pointing out, although we could probably find some pointing out in this text. Okay? Everybody good? All right. Very well. Let's start. We got plenty of time to dip into this. We've had lots of Dharma talk, which is considered right speech. And now we'll have some time for this text exploration. Yes, and hello everybody out there on YouTube. Thank you for appearing in my dream. So it says here, the layers of samsaric habits primordially abide as the Dharmakaya. Failing to see this, they are objects of compassion. When the concept of a self arises objectively, the flow of the various movements of thought recollections primordially arises as the Sambhogakaya. So wait a minute. That's already getting jam-packed, so if you want to go back up a little bit, the layers of samsaric habits primordially abide as the Dharmakaya. Failing to see this, they are objects of compassion. To me, that's reminding me of how everything in our life, even if it seems turbulent, is essentially just pushing us back to liberation in some way or another, even if it takes our whole life, in the case of addiction and things like that. And this is a high level view. We don't want to abuse this view. I think it can be very beautiful, actually. When you look around, you see even the ant that has been caught in the spider's web, is that experience is bringing that ant closer to liberation. Now, that doesn't negate the middle way where you can still have compassion for the ant. By the way, ants, I don't think they usually get caught up in spider webs. So, just an example. But I hope you get what I'm saying there, that you can have the realization of ultimate truth at the same time as have empathy and compassion and be in the play. So it also says when the concept of a self arises objectively, the flow of the various movements of thought recollections primordially arises as the Sambhogakaya. So I would say that clear light cognizance, this cognition, is essentially taking the form of lots of thoughts and emotions and various kind of constrictions, psychic constrictions. And so that's why cognition is displaced then. Your wisdom mind is essentially dukkha in Sanskrit, right? It's a wobbly or rusty wheel. So it says, nevertheless, not recalling, they have forgotten. All social gatherings, efforts, and activities are primordially the Nirmanakaya. Yet failing to identify them, how dull they have become. So we're continuing our diss track. Longchen is just going in on, I suppose, his neighbors here. and people he's witnessed. And he's going through the sixth of the six senses. So remember in the previous section, he went through, oh, what, they can't smell the sweet whiff of freedom. They can't see the glorious appearances of liberation, all this kind of stuff. They can't taste the nectar. And so it says, whatever the mind conjures up or recalls will be unceasing like a flowing river, always luring itself away. Without internalizing placement through effortless meditation, let me rephrase that. Without internalizing shamatha stability through effortless meditation, how completely distracted the mind has become. Ooh, that's a very potent line right there. Now, I don't really prefer the term placement for shamatha, for shine, the stability practice, because placement definitely has dependent imputations like duality. Where are you placing it and things like that? I like stability, if anything, would be better there. So, anybody know what stability would be in Dzogchen, at least in this group? How we approach Dzogchen Samatha? Told you, like, but you guys with these acronyms. Yeah. So we got the short version and the long version there. Both of you got it. Yeah, just stabilizing in awareness, right? Because it's like space. Space is always here, yet we're sort of unaware of it. And awareness, your mind is like that. The clear light aspect permeates everything in a very stable way. And so, what is Longchen telling us right here? Without internalizing shamatha through effortless meditation, how completely distracted the mind has become. So, you can sit there and use an object for your shamatha meditation, which is sutrayana. So, you focus on this object until your mind becomes stable. But that's still conditioning. So, in objectless meditation, you learn to stabilize your entire experience into presence. And to me, that's the absolute definition of Mahamudra, when you're stabilized in pure presence. And then Vipassana is naturally part of that, the insight, the direct seeing. You'll be able to navigate life in that flow that they're talking about, and in a kind of revelation unconfined by the conceptual mind. So the phenomenon of the universe, and I always like to say multiverse because we know that there are more than one universes. So the phenomenon of the multiverse and inhabitants are seen and heard when analyzed, have no true inherent existence. Nonetheless, within the view that severs the citadel, still failing to see primordial way of Uh, where is this from, by the way, Yeshi? Does it tell us where this is from at the top? I think it was some Tantra. Yeah, heap of jewels. Okay, very good. So this isn't actually Longchen doing the diss track. It's heap of jewels Tantra, which, who knows, attributed Manjushri Mitra, maybe Gardorje. So when the quote continues, yeah, you could just bring that all the way up. Without searching, to rest in this baseless, groundless dharmata is a great marvel. With nothing to encounter, this awareness that is coming and going is the great marvel. Ooh, this awareness that is coming and going. Something went off there, it seems. Yeah, something in the translation happened there, maybe. So it says, with no antidote, this great primordially abiding wisdom is a great marvel. Yeah, because awareness doesn't come and go. So all of this must be, oh, it's probably talking about your mind, like regular thoughts and things like that. But it says all of this must be determined to be the great exhaustion of phenomenon within original purity through the 12 Vajra laughters and the 7 astonishing secret words. The Tantra continues. Listen, Vajra essence of the enlightened speech of all Buddhas. Look with the essential view of self-emergent wisdom. See what I was saying? When you stabilize in awareness, vipassana, wisdom is going to be a natural kind of co-emergent byproduct of that stability. Because you're having undistorted presence. And it says, to transcend virtue, non-virtue, view, and meditation, how astonishing! Having never wavered from the ground, whatever is engaged with body or speech is freed from benefit or harm. Ha ha! Listen, Vajra of enlightened speech, look at the fundamental nature of things. The color and form of these phenomena have not a hair's worth of change. How astonishing! Regardless of whether there's joy or sorrow, nothing ever changes. Ha ha! Listen, Vajra of enlightened speech, look at great emptiness, the source of all wisdom. No matter how diverse the conduct of whatever comes to mind may be, it emerges as the manifestation of emptiness. How astonishing! Whatever occurs is unceasingly liberated within the unborn expanse. Ha ha! Listen, Vajra, enlightened speech. Look at the wisdom of the all-pervasive empty Dharmata. It is unborn and unabiding. It is unborn and abiding simultaneously. How astonishing! Even the mind of an individual who acquires a sharp weapon and slaughters many living beings simultaneously is free from benefit or harm. Ha ha! And that's what I was telling you about the ant being caught in the spider's web, how you can see the ultimate truth. Now, I don't know if you want to go laughing at the ant. If you're a crazy yogi, I suppose that's what you do. I always say Om Mani Padme Hum or something. It depends what planet you're from, I suppose. So it says, haha, very, very funny. Listen, Vajra of enlightened speech. Look at the emptiness of self-cognition, the wisdom of all that appears. Whatever appears is supportive for the practitioner's path. How astonishing! Whatever appears never wavers from the ground itself. Ha ha! It's so interesting. I want to pause for a second and tell you all. I want to disclose something. I know we're being recorded. Where I was going crazy the other day. So the rattlesnake was next to my bed, and I lost my mind. Well, I never really had my mind. I just started picking things up and like removing them out of the house, trying to find the snake. I'm talking about like the whole couch. I was so sore, my arms were like jelly afterwards because I was just picking up giant bed by myself, and moving everything I could, all these freaking bricks and everything, all within like 10 minutes. I just kind of lost it. And the whole time I was going, ha ha, very funny. Rattlesnakes in my house. Ha ha ha. And so this is totally reminding me of that. And then the bed would like land on my head and I'd be like, ha ha, the bed's landing on my head. So funny. I'd like pull it out. Dog escapes. Ha ha, of course the dog escapes. So funny. And I was just going like that and I felt genuinely insane. But anyway, so this sort of was reminding me of that. I mean, normally that would piss you off, right? So many of these things happening. I was just, it was my mantra. Ha ha, so funny. And I mean, I must have said it 20 times. The dogs were looking at me like, what is wrong with him? And I wasn't like yelling at the top of my lungs or anything. So, but yeah, great times. Uh, so, as I was saying, this resonates a lot with my disposition today. Feel like syncretic. Oh, very good. Okay, so let's get more into it. Maybe Longchen is having one of those types of days. Um, I like this. Look at the emptiness of self-cognition, Rang Rigpa in Tibetan. The wisdom of all that appears, whatever appears, is supportive for the practitioner's path. How astonishing! Whatever appears never wavers from the ground itself. Ha ha! And now that's exactly what I was telling you too. That spider's web, that encounter, um, is a support for that being. And now this is pretty out there, but you can look in your own experience and see how every time we stumble and things happen, it does seem to lead in a way to wisdom. And we can keep banging our head up against the wall until finally we accept that wisdom out of it. Uh, so to me, this can happen, and it's very, very difficult to embrace this conceptually. I would say let this come into your naked cognizance, okay? Because when you see a little puppy suffering, it's going to be very difficult to say, well, it's going through what it needs to go through to get to freedom. You don't need to even speculate. You can still have empathy for that puppy and know that ultimately it's heading towards freedom. And these are the trials and tribulations. This is the mud. And we've labeled that mud. We've conceptualized that mud. We've labeled those bundles and aggregates and dances of energy. That's kind of on us. Um, so, and we can also be reassured that many beings have defense mechanisms in place, but that little puppy that may be suffering, in another life, probably has also done some things. You see, so I'm not trying to create a cosmic justice system here, but I'm saying that if you see some cows on a truck and you feel terrible for them, um, it's great. That compassion is wonderful. But also, if you can continue your vipassana direct seeing, you will see that those cows were involved in some shit. No pun intended. But Omani Pemehon, I love the cows so much. Really, all they do is eat grass. But that's why we have to be careful how we treat the animals, how we treat people, because to me, it's very easy to develop a hateful mind and then have a life as an animal, just so you'll learn that wisdom. And it is a very bad dream. It deserves full sympathy. So we'll just continue here. Yeah, go ahead. Let's go. Listen, Vajra of enlightened speech. Look at the empty essence of awareness, fully liberated phenomenon. That itself is the great antidote. How astonishing! All passions are naturally liberated by themselves. Ha ha! Right there, buddy. So when you get down on yourself about your desires and how you engage in some sexual stuff, whatever, remember, as long as you have the awareness practice, these passions will be naturally liberated and harmonized. So generally, you'll find natural compassion underneath sexual misconduct, for example. You'll find non-duality and altruism underneath sexual desires. You may get thirsty for a second and want something in a very kind of sensual way, but underneath that, when that's gone, there will be a compassion there. So, and there'll be a clarity there. I'm not going to talk about the nicknames that they have for that clarity. But anyway, let's continue. This is really going in on self-liberation, and I love that. It's perfect to the introduction that I was talking about earlier. So it says, listen, Vajra of enlightened speech. Look at empty awareness. The nature of all that is pure. The result is attained without effort. How astonishing. With a single result, the entirety of samsara and enlightenment is non-dual purity. Ha ha! Listen, Vajra of enlightened speech. Look at the great emptiness of the three kayas, the extent of all stability. They say placement. Um, the six classes appear as the three kayas. How astonishing! All beings are simultaneously awakened without even a particle's worth of meditation. Ha ha! Listen, Vajra of enlightened speech. Look at the great emptiness of the three kayas, the primordially perfected result. The three times are free from meeting and parting. How astonishing! Without practicing the six paramitas, or the six perfections of the Mahayana, all accumulations are simultaneously perfected. Ha ha! Listen, Vajra of enlightened speech. Look at total placement or stability within empty awareness as all pervasive evenness. And that's what I was talking about earlier about seeing your screen and noticing the different, the variety, the multiplicity in the screen, noticing how the mind can attract or avert towards things on our screen, and then it can also be very, very even. Like when I'm talking to you all, generally, my eyes, the focus is landing right here, around here, in empty space. So I'm not focusing on an individual in these gatherings, right? I'm letting there be an evenness. Now, sometimes when a person is sharing, then I think that there can be an acknowledgement there. You don't have to get weird, but it's still within the wholeness of your mind. So evenness is a beautiful thing. Evenness almost reveals multiplicity in a more vivid fashion, paradoxically. And whenever we run into a paradox in Dzogchen, it's probably a good sign. But within evenness, it's almost like you have more fullness. So you tend to think, oh, this is bland if it's all even, but no, it's not that kind of evenness. It's very alive evenness. Like when you're looking at a landscape and the mountains and the fields and the sky are all kind of talking to you at once. Listen, Vajra of enlightened speech. Look at total placement within empty awareness as all pervasive evenness. All engagements arise as ornaments. How astonishing! All acceptance and rejection are liberated by the view. Ha ha! Excuse me. So you have the Tantra of the heaped jewels telling you here that everything is going to be liberated utilizing awareness. So you have kind of the secret there. Listen, Vajra of enlightened speech. Look at the emptiness that is great primordial emptiness, that has been the wisdom intent of all Buddhas. How astonishing! In that state, the activity of meditation amounts to a downfall. Ha ha! So funny. Listen, Vajra of enlightened speech. Look at the material aspect of emptiness that is not empty. There is a vehicle of fixation on a self that is non-existent. How astonishing! Through birth, the unborn is attained. Ha ha! Ah, that's great. Through birth, the unborn is attained. Okay, so I assume this is Longchen again. He says, the above explanation applies to the way things abide, the naked revelation of the nature, and the practitioner's level of realization. The 7 secret words of astonishment are, as the quote continues. Okay, so those were the 7 words, secret words of astonishment, or somebody's just laughing their butt off. Emaho, listen, Vajra essence of enlightened speech. Due to the key point of self-awareness being free from birth and death, there is not a particle's worth of difference in taking the life of 1,000,000 sentient beings compared to always practicing the 10 paramitas. I, Samantabhadra, have revealed this. You see why it's secret, everybody? Because if you started telling this to just everybody outside of the self-protected mandala, then that could easily be abused right there. And perhaps that's what some of these gurus are using as an excuse for abuse and to lose their conduct, to lose their skillful means. But this is a point of ultimate truth. It doesn't mean you go taking the life of a million beings. Those were the 12 Vajra laughters. Thank you, Doja Legpa. And these are the 7, right? Yep. Very good. So we're just really laughing a lot here. And it says, I, Samantabhadra, have revealed this, due to the key point of the Vajra enlightened speech of all Buddhas being the unelaborate Dharmata. There is not a particle's worth of difference for attaining enlightenment by always meditating on emptiness versus having never considered emptiness for even an instant. I, Samantabhadra, have revealed this. Listen, Vajra of enlightened speech, due to the key point of awareness itself being uncompounded, there exists not a particle's worth of difference between the perspective of accumulating merit, between a faithful person engaged in boundless deeds based on compounded virtue, versus one who is constantly taking the lives of others. I, Samantabhadra, have revealed this. I guess we're not laughing anymore. Okay. Listen, Vajra of enlightened speech, due to the key point of wisdom awareness being free from coming and going, there is not a particle's worth of difference concerning the way a person with the physical and verbal signs of realizing the Dharmata sees phenomenon versus one who has never studied or contemplated. I, Samantabhadra, have revealed this. Wait a minute, Yeshi. Wait a minute. Now, this I've said to you all many times, right? That everybody's Buddha, and that's what makes us a little bit different here. Oftentimes people take religion and they say, well, we got the truth, they don't. We're holding awareness, we're doing our mind stuff, they're not. No, they're all on their path too, perfectly where they need to be. And we need to allow that. That's part of our allowing. Now, if they come to you and ask for help, of course, remember, we're always in the middle. We don't want to lean into extremisms. And but generally speaking, if you can start to realize them as Buddhas, as perfection, there's a lot in that. There's a lot of beauty in that. And you're doing a lot for them too, believe it or not. It's happening on the subtle levels, though, so it's not as obvious and perhaps as explicit as we may idealize. But still, to me, that always keeps us, with everything. We're never on a high horse where you think you're above anybody else. Everybody is your enlightened mind talking to you. This is something our group can more and more begin to embrace. We already have. Everybody treats each other so good in these gatherings. I think that's a great sign. And when new people come, acknowledge their comments, their inquiries, their challenges, and or just be a presence for them. It really helps. So we're going into really beautiful truths here, but I told you earlier that awareness is beyond coming and going. And here it says, due to the key point of wisdom awareness being free from coming and going. So you see how there must have been a translation issue in that previous section. All right, very good. So we can continue then. It says, listen, Vajra of enlightened speech, due to the key point of the Dharmata being free from origin or cessation, there is not a particle's worth of difference concerning the attainment of realization between a person who experiences the hot and cold realms of hell versus one who experiences the blissful states of all the Buddhas. I, Samantabhadra, have revealed this. Listen, Vajra of enlightened speech. By the way, that means like indestructible one, speaking to your enlightened mind. So the indestructibility of speech, maybe. Due to the key point of awareness itself being unchanging, There is not a particle's worth of difference concerning a person who has severed elaborate mental analysis and one who believes this self to be eternal. I, Samantabhadra, have revealed this. And remember, Samantabhadra is Sanskrit for the all good, primordial purity, the supreme divinity, the God, whatever, the ineffable space that we're all part of, mind. So these are really wonderful verses. Wow. Heap jewel tantra. Listen, Vajra of enlightened speech. Due to the key point of the Dharmakaya being self-nature, there is not a particle's worth of difference concerning the attainment of the result for a person who externally makes many offerings and renders praise through various supplications, versus someone who never engages in positive spiritual deeds. I, Samantabhadra, have revealed this. And I hope you all realize that, we had 27 yogis in 27 days from all types of different backgrounds. They have everything from princesses to prostitutes in the lineages. And this right here is telling you that it's verifying the same point that whatever you look like, whatever you dress like, you don't have to have lots and lots of beads or dreadlocks. You don't have to have red dots painted on your forehead and things like that. That you can actually still have all these benefits. And I mean, no offense. I'm just saying you don't need to decorate yourself in any way. For example, Garchen Rinpoche, when he was in a Chinese prison for 20 years, they would not allow them to show any signs of Buddhism. So you can have this without an external display. So please, if you catch yourself judging your appearance and, how could I be an enlightened being? Well, I see it. So many of you, it's so easy to see it. And so I hope you also see what I'm seeing and more, of course, more. So Vajra of enlightened speech, therefore, a person who internalizes these great self-emergent words and gains effortless confidence with their practice will awaken as inseparable with the three kayas. So the three kayas are great emptiness, cognizance, and energy. So if you want to look at like a mirror, it would be life is the energy, the reflections on the mirror, but there's something causing those reflections. That's cognizance, and they're happening within a space. That's emptiness. That's the Dharmakaya. We can roughly say, and they're inseparable. Okay. So it says these explanations, according to the great perfection tradition, apply to the nature of practice that corresponds to a direct realization of wisdom awareness. This determines the profound key point that are more exalted than all others. Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Yeshi, so much for facilitating, my dear friend, and everyone in the gathering for making this possible and exploring this text today. This is really good translation by Sangye Khandro, pretty well done, and relatively recently, I think about 10 years ago. And it's getting into the really the essence of our practice, isn't it? This should make a lot of sense to a lot of people in the group. And yeah, we had the 12 Vajra laughters, it looks like, and then the 7. I thought they were both called Vajra laughters, but okay. All right. Any thoughts, inquiries, anything before we close out today? Very good. I'm glad I introduced with pointing out the nature of mind, because that's what the text ended on today. It says this really is dealing with the wisdom awareness, right? Not just, I have awareness of the water cup, awareness that permeates your awareness of the water cup. Okay. Very well. So we can end here then. Yeah, thank you. And These gatherings, like it just said, this is the highest of the highest, Dzogchen, Atioga. These gatherings are considered very meritorious, and if that's the case, they're beings in this very presence that are suffering, and we dedicate all the merit to them with a moment of silence. Okay, deep bow to you, my friends. Have a beautiful day. Take care out there.